The great hall was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Hundreds of alien beings sat in their special seats, each one built for their strange bodies. Some had 6 arms, others had skin like glass, and a few glowed with their own light. They all looked angry as they stared at the human standing in the center of the room. Kang Wu stood straight and calm. His black suit was simple compared to the fancy robes and armor worn by the aliens around him. Behind him, Captain Li Jina kept her hand near her weapon. She was ready for trouble, just like all human soldiers. The biggest alien in the room slowly stood up. Her name was Velthera, and she ruled over many star systems. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors when she was upset. Right, now those colors were very dark. Humans, she said, and the word sounded like poison in her mouth. You have gone too far this time. 12 new worlds in 6 months. 12 worlds that you took without asking anyone. The hologram above them showed a map of space. Red dots marked the human worlds, and they were spreading fast. Each dot was a place where humans had built cities and farms. The aliens did not like seeing so many red dots. An insect-like creature clicked its sharp teeth together. This was Zektar, who spoke for a race that thought with one shared mind. The newcomers must learn their place. We have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. Humans have been here for only 300 years. Kang Wu did not move. His face showed nothing. The Terran Federation follows all the old laws about settling new worlds. We check each planet to make sure no one lives there first. That is, not enough. Velthera's crystal body flashed bright red. You terraform worlds too fast. You change their air and water before getting permission. You build cities before the council says yes. We build cities to house our people, Kang Wu said quietly. Our population grows. We need new homes. Then, control your breeding, shouted another alien. This one looked like a giant spider made of metal. Other races manage their numbers. Why cannot humans do the same? Captain Li Jina stepped forward just a little. It was a small move, but every alien in the room saw it. They knew what human soldiers could do. Stories spread fast in space, and the stories about human fighters were scary ones. Velthera saw the captain's movement too. You dare bring weapons into this sacred hall? Every delegation brings security, Kang Wu replied. Captain Li is here to protect me, just as your guards protect you. Deep under the great hall, in rooms that most beings had forgotten, an old robot named Mordeth was listening to everything. He had been built long ago to keep records and watch for danger. His metal body was old and dented, but his computer brain still worked perfectly. The arguing above made warning lights flash in his dark room. He had heard this kind of talk before, many years ago. His mechanical fingers moved over old controls, opening files that had been locked away for a very long time. Warning, he said to the empty room. Pattern match detected. Accessing historical records. The files he opened told a terrible story. They were about a race called the Korthazi, who had once ruled half the galaxy. They were proud and strong, with weapons that could destroy whole star systems. They thought they were the greatest warriors in space. Then they met the humans. The Korthazi had demanded that humans bow down to them. They wanted humans to become slaves and give up their freedom. When humans said no, the Korthazi went to war. That war lasted only 2 years. When it was over, the Korthazi homeworld was empty. Their great fleets were broken metal floating in space. Their proud empire was gone forever. The humans had won, but the victory was so complete that other races were afraid to ask how they did it. Mordeth found one last message from the Korthazi world. The voice was full of fear. They do not fight like anyone else. They do not run away. They do not give up. They learn and change and become stronger. What have we done? What have we made them become? Back in the Great Hall, the arguing was getting worse. More aliens were standing up and shouting. They wanted humans to stop growing. They wanted humans to ask permission before doing anything. They wanted humans to follow rules that would make them weak. Kang Wu listened to it all. His face stayed calm, but inside he was thinking. He knew these aliens were afraid of humans, but they were too proud to admit it. Fear made people do stupid things, and right now the whole council was being very stupid. The Terran Federation will consider your concerns, he said when the shouting died down. But we will not stop growing. We will not stop building homes for our children, and we will not bow to anyone. The crystal alien Velthara turned almost black with anger. Then perhaps it is time to remind humans that they are not the only ones with power in this galaxy. Captain Lee Gina moved her hand closer to her weapon. She had heard enough threats for one day. Around the room, other guards were also getting ready for trouble, but Kang Wu held up his hand, and his captain stopped moving. Ambassador Velthara, he said, using her title to show respect even though he felt none. I hope you will think carefully about what you are suggesting. History shows that threatening humans is not wise. History, laughed the insect creature. Zektar. Humans have such short lives. What do you know of real history? In his underground room, Mordeth was trying to send warning messages to anyone who would listen. His old voice echoed in the empty halls. Do not challenge them. Do not threaten them. Do not make them choose between peace and survival. The files are clear. When humans must choose, they always choose survival. But no one was listening to an old robot in a forgotten room. Above him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were making the same mistake that had destroyed the Korthazi. They were about to learn why there was an old rule that everyone had forgotten. Do not challenge the humans. The meeting ended with cold words and dark looks. As the aliens filed out of the hall, they whispered about teaching humans a lesson. They talked about showing these newcomers their proper place. They planned and plotted and made ready for war. None of them had read the old files. None of them knew what had really happened to the Korthazi. They thought they were strong enough and smart enough to defeat a race that had only been in space for 300 years. They were about to discover how wrong they were. 3 weeks had passed since the angry meeting at the council. Nothing seemed to have changed on the surface, but deep currents were moving in the galaxy. Ships moved in dark space, messages flew between worlds, and plans were made in secret rooms. On the farming world of Kepler 442c, Hyojin was checking the big machines that changed the planet's air. She was a terraforming engineer, which meant her job was to make dead worlds into places where humans could live. It was hard work, but she loved seeing empty rocks become green worlds full of life. The morning started like any other. She walked through the fields where new crops were growing in alien soil. The sky was still orange instead of blue, but that would change in a few more years. The air machines were working well, slowly making the atmosphere perfect for human lungs. Then, the alarm started ringing. Yejin ran to the nearest communication station and called her boss, Park Dae-ho. He was up in the space station that watched over their world. Sir, we have a big problem, she said, breathing hard from running. Ships just appeared in our system. Big ones. They look like the insect ships from the news feeds. Park Dae-ho was already at his control station, looking at the screens that showed space around their world. What he saw made his stomach feel cold. Huge ships that looked like living creatures were floating near their planet. They were Zektar hive ships, and there were enough of them to destroy everything the humans had built. How many ships, he asked. 23 large vessels and maybe 100 smaller ones, reported his sensor officer. Sir, they are sending us a message. The main screen filled with the face of a Zektar commander. Its bug-like head had many eyes, and its mouth was full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the words came out like angry clicking sounds that the computer had to translate. Human insects, the alien said. This world belongs to the Zektar Collective by ancient right. You have one standard day to remove all your people and machines. If you do not leave, we will make you leave. Park Dae-ho looked at the screen for a long moment. Below him on the planet were 45,000 human settlers. They had farms and schools and shops. Children played in parks while their parents worked to build a new life. This was their home now. Send a reply, he told his communication officer. Tell them this world was empty when we found it. We followed all the laws about settling new planets. If they have a legal claim, they can take it to the council. The Zektar commander made a sound like breaking glass. We do not need permission from the Council to take what is ours. You have 1 day, human. After that, we will show you what happens to thieves." The transmission ended, leaving the human station in worried silence. "Sir," said his second-in-command, "we should start evacuating people. We cannot fight that many ships." Park Dae-ho was quiet for a minute, thinking. Then he turned to his communication station. "Send a priority message to Terra Defense Command. Tell them we have a code black situation. Request immediate military support. Sir, even if they send ships right away, it will take days for them to get here. We only have 1 day. Then we buy more time." Park Dae-ho's voice was calm, but inside he was angry. These bug creatures thought they could just take a world that humans had worked so hard to build. They thought humans would just run away like scared animals. They were about to learn better. Far away on the Council world, Velthara was meeting with other alien leaders in a secret room. They had planned this attack carefully. The Zektar would force humans to leave one world, and that would show everyone that humans could be beaten. "Once the insects make them retreat," she said, "other races will see that humans are not as strong as they pretend. Their expansion will slow down, and they will learn to ask permission like proper civilized beings." But in his old room under the Council building, Mordeth was sending messages to anyone who would listen. Most aliens thought he was just a broken old machine, but some still remembered that he had seen things they had not. Keeper Yanthul of the peaceful Silvani people was one who listened. She was old and wise, and she remembered stories from before the humans came. When Mordeth's message reached her, she felt afraid. "The cycle begins again," the robot's message said. "They challenge the humans, not knowing what they wake up. Humans do not fight for territory or pride. They fight for survival. And when humans fight for survival, they do not stop until they win or die." Yanthul tried to contact Velthara, but the crystal alien would not take her calls. The plan was already moving, and nothing could stop it now. Back at Kepler 442c, Park Dae-ho was talking to his engineers. "How long do we need to finish the terraforming project?" 3 more days for the atmosphere to be stable," said the chief engineer, Nam Ju-won. "But sir, if we speed up the process, we could finish in 1 day. It would be dangerous, though. The chemical reactions might be unpredictable." "Do it," Park Dae-ho said, "and prepare the emergency protocols." Nam Ju-won looked confused. "Sir, which emergency protocols?" "All of them." Down on the planet, Hee-jin was helping people get ready to leave. But she noticed something strange. The important machines were not being shut down. Instead, more engineers were working on them, making them run faster and hotter than ever before. "What are they doing?" asked her friend Minsu, who worked in the food processing plant. "I think they are preparing for something," Hee-jin said, "but I do not know what." In space above them, Captain Kim Bo-ra was leading a small fleet of human ships toward the system. She had only 6 vessels against the Zektar's massive force, but she was not worried about the numbers. She was thinking about the message she had received from Terra Defense Command. "Operation Prometheus is authorized," the message had said. "Protect the colony at all costs. Show them why the old rule exists." Kim Bo-ra had studied military history. She knew about the Korthazi and what had happened to them. She also knew that most of the galaxy had forgotten that lesson. It was time to teach it again. "All ships," she said over the communication system, "prepare for combat. Remember, we are not just fighting for one world. We are fighting to keep our people safe, everywhere." The Zektar deadline was getting closer. Their ships moved into attack position around the planet. They thought the humans would surrender when they saw how outgunned they were. They did not understand that humans never surrendered when their families were in danger. They were about to learn what that meant. On the planet's surface, Nam Ju-won made the final adjustments to the terraforming machines. The air processing systems were running at maximum power now, changing the planet's atmosphere faster than ever before. It was dangerous work, but he had his orders. "Prometheus protocol is ready," he reported to the space station. "Waiting for your command." Park Dae-ho looked at the screens showing the Zektar fleet. In a few hours, they would attack. But humans had been preparing for this kind of fight for 300 years. They had learned hard lessons from the Korthazi War, and they had never forgotten them. "Signal all stations," he said. "Operation Prometheus is now active. Let's show these bugs what happens when you threaten a human world." The attack began when the sun rose over New Sol, the biggest city on Kepler 442c. Green fire fell from the sky like deadly rain as the Zektar ships opened fire. The bug aliens had decided that humans would not leave willingly, so they would force them out. Commander Yun Tae-yang was in the military command center when the first explosions shook the ground. He had been a soldier for 20 years and had fought in border wars against pirates and raiders, but he had never faced anything like this. "Sir, we have enemy landing craft coming down all over the planet," reported Lieutenant Choi Min-ho. "They are bringing thousands of warrior bugs with them." Through the thick windows of the command bunker, Yun Tae-yang could see the enemy ships landing in the fields outside the city. They looked like giant insects themselves, with long legs that stuck into the ground and mouths that opened to let out swarms of Zektar soldiers. "How many do we have to fight?" he asked. "Our scouts count at least 50,000 enemy soldiers," Choi Min-ho said, his voice tight with worry. "We have maybe 1,000 human fighters on the whole planet. 50 to 1. Those were terrible odds, but Yun Tae-yang had expected this. Humans were always outnumbered in space. That was why they had learned to fight differently than everyone else. "Signal all units," he said, picking up his plasma rifle. "Fall back to the terraforming stations. Protect those machines with your lives. And remember, keep your environment suits ready." Above the planet, Captain Kim Bo-ra's small fleet was fighting a desperate battle against the huge Zektar hive ships. Her ship, the Indomitable, shook as enemy fire hit its shields. "Ma'am, we have lost the Defiant," reported Lieutenant Park So-young from her station. "Captain Hong Jae-wook rammed his ship into the enemy flagship. He took out their main command ship, but his whole crew is gone." Kim Bo-ra felt sad for the lost sailors, but she could not stop to grieve. "Signal the Thunderbolt and the Ranger. Form up for attack run 7. We need to keep these bug ships busy for a few more hours." "Ma'am." "A few more hours for what?" Kim Bo-ra smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "For Prometheus to be ready." On the Council world, the alien leaders were watching the battle on their screens. They saw human ships being destroyed and human soldiers being pushed back by the Zektar swarms. Everything was going as they had planned. "Look how they run," said Velthara, her crystal body glowing with satisfaction. "The humans thought they were so strong, but they cannot stand against real military power." The insect ambassador Zektar clicked its teeth together happily. "Soon the human colony will surrender, and the galaxy will see that these newcomers can be defeated. Other races will join us in pushing them back to their little corner of space." But Archon Mordith, the old robot in the deep archives, was watching different screens. He was looking at energy readings from the planet itself, and what he saw made his ancient circuits fill with alarm. "Warning," he broadcast on emergency frequencies. "Energy buildup detected on human colony world. Pattern matches historical data from Korthazi extinction event. Recommend immediate withdrawal of all non-human forces." No one was listening to the old machine. They were too busy watching the humans lose the battle. On Kepler 442c, the fighting was fierce and bloody. Zektar warriors were like giant ants with armor and energy weapons. They moved in perfect coordination, each one knowing what all the others were thinking. They should have been able to crush the human defenders easily, but something strange was happening. The humans were not fighting the way the Zektar expected. Instead of trying to hold territory, they kept moving. Instead of building defensive walls, they led the bugs deeper into the planet's atmosphere. Ye Jin was with a group of civilians in an underground shelter when she noticed the air starting to smell different. It was getting thicker, and it made her eyes water a little. "Everyone put on your breathing masks," she called out. "The air outside is changing." In the terraforming center, engineer Nam Ju-won was working frantically at his control station. The machines around him were running so hot that they glowed red. Warning lights flashed everywhere, but he ignored them. "Atmospheric composition at 60%, he reported to the command center. "Oxygen levels rising. Chemical mixture approaching target parameters." "How much longer?" asked Commander Yun Tae-yang over the radio. 2 more hours for full saturation. But sir, the bugs are getting close to the main station. Hold your position. No matter what happens, keep those machines running. The Zektar were winning the ground battle, but their soldiers were starting to feel sick. The air on this world was wrong somehow. It made them dizzy and weak. Their commanders thought it was just fear, so they pushed the attack harder. Dr. Song. Hewan was in her laboratory deep under the main city, working with samples she had been studying for months. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. For the past year, she had been learning everything she could about Zektar biology. Perfect, she said, as she looked at her test results. Their respiratory system cannot handle high oxygen environments, and when we add the methane catalyst, she activated the final sequence on her computer. All over the planet, hidden chemical tanks began releasing their contents into the atmosphere. The Zektar had no idea that the very air around them was becoming poison to their bodies. Above the planet, the space battle was still raging. Captain Kim Bo-ra's fleet was down to 3 ships, but they were still fighting. Her communication officer suddenly looked up from his station with excitement. "Ma'am, I am getting a signal from the surface. They say Prometheus is ready for ignition." Kim Bo-ra felt her heart beat faster. After all the planning and preparation, the moment had finally come. "Signal all ships. Fall back to minimum safe distance. Prometheus activation in 30 seconds. The Zektar fleet commanders saw the human ships retreating and thought they had won. Their fighters moved closer to the planet to give better support to their ground forces. It was exactly what the humans had wanted them to do. 10 seconds to ignition, came the voice from the planet. Kim Bo-ra watched her screens as enemy ships filled the space between her fleet and the planet. They thought they were moving in for the final attack. They had no idea they were flying into a trap that had taken months to prepare. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Prometheus is active. What happened next would be talked about in whispers throughout the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. The planet's atmosphere, carefully adjusted by months of terraforming work, suddenly caught fire. It was not an explosion. It was worse than that. It was a chemical reaction that turned the entire sky into a burning ocean. The Zektar ships caught in the upper atmosphere were consumed instantly. Their organic hulls burned like paper in the firestorm that surrounded the world. On the ground, Zektar soldiers collapsed as the poisoned air filled their lungs. They had been bred to fight in many different environments, but not in an atmosphere that was designed specifically to kill them. Commander Yun Tae-yang watched from his sealed bunker as the sky turned into a wall of flame. "All units, report status." "Sir, the enemy ground forces are down. All of them." The atmospheric weapon worked perfectly. Above the planet, Captain Kim Bo-ra was looking at her tactical display in amazement. Of the 23 Zektar capital ships that had attacked their world, only 7 had escaped the burning sky. The rest were twisted wreckage falling toward the planet's surface. "Signal the surviving enemy ships," she ordered. "Tell them they have one chance to leave this system and never come back." The response came from the Zektar fleet commander, its voice filled with shock and fear. "How? How did you turn a whole world into a weapon?" Kim Bo-ra's answer would be remembered by every species in the galaxy. "We had 300 years to get ready for this conversation. Did you think we spent that time sitting still?" But the real shock was yet to come. Long-range sensors were detecting something that made even the humans pause in amazement. Human fleets were jumping into Zektar space all over the galaxy. Prometheus was not just a single planet's defense. It was a coordinated attack on every major Zektar world at the same time. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans said never again, they meant it. The news traveled across the galaxy faster than light itself. What had happened at Kepler 4482c was not just a battle, it was a demonstration. Humans had turned an entire planet into a weapon and used it to destroy a fleet that outnumbered them, 20 to 1. But that was only the beginning. Admiral Jin Suho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution, as it jumped out of hyperspace near the Zektar home system. Around him, 100 human ships appeared like ghosts materializing from the void. They had been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Admiral," reported Captain Lee Ji-Hoo from the stealth ship Shadow Walker. We have confirmation. Terraforming packages have been deployed on all 7 Zektar homeworlds. The atmospheric processors are already beginning their work. Jin Suho nodded grimly. The humans had learned their lesson well from the Korthazi War. When someone threatened human civilians, the response was not just to defend. It was to make sure the threat could never rise again. Signal the Zektar Planetary Defense Fleet, he ordered. Standard surrender terms. They have 72 hours to evacuate their core worlds before we ignite their atmospheres. On the Council world, panic was spreading through the government buildings. The alien leaders who had planned this attack were now watching their careful plans crumble into disaster. Velthara's crystal body was flashing between colors so fast it hurt to look at her. This is impossible. How did humans get fleets to every major Zektar system so quickly? The spider-like alien tech moth clicked its metal legs nervously. Our intelligence said humans only had defensive fleets. Where did these attack forces come from? In his archive chamber, Mordeth was broadcasting on every frequency he could access. I tried to warn you. The humans have been preparing for this day since they first arrived in our galaxy. They do not just plan for today's threats, they plan for tomorrow's wars. Keeper Yanthul of the Silvani was one of the few who understood what was happening. She remembered the old stories about human war planning. Humans did not just build armies, they built the factories to build armies. They did not just train soldiers, they trained the teachers who would train more soldiers. For 300 years, while other races thought humans were focused on peaceful expansion, they had actually been preparing for the day when someone would try to destroy them. That day had finally come. Back at Kepler 442c, the cleanup was beginning. Zektar bodies littered the landscape, their insect-like forms twisted and burned by the poisoned atmosphere. Human engineers in protective suits were checking the terraforming equipment to make sure it was still working properly. Commander Yun Tai-yang walked through the battlefield with Dr. Song Hye-won, both of them wearing breathing masks until the air could be cleaned of the chemical weapons. How many of our people did we lose, he asked. 43 soldiers and 12 civilians, she replied. The Zektar lost over 50,000. Yun Tai-yang was quiet for a moment. I feel sorry for them, in a way. They did not know what they were starting. Dr. Song looked at the twisted wreckage of Zektar ships scattered across the horizon. They knew we had children and families here. They attacked anyway. I do not feel sorry for them at all. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Zektar were facing their worst nightmare. Human fleets had appeared at every important world in their empire. Worse, the humans were not demanding surrender. They were demanding complete evacuation. The Zektar, hive queens, tried to negotiate, but the human response was always the same. You have 72 hours. After that, your worlds burn. It was not an empty threat. The humans had already proven they could turn planets into weapons. Orbital sensors showed that human terraforming ships were working on every Zektar world, changing the atmospheres to make them deadly to insect life. On the Zektar capital world of Nestkaran, Hive Queen Velkara was meeting with her war council. The greatest military minds of their species were trying to find a way to fight back, but the situation was hopeless. Our fleets are scattered across the galaxy, reported war leader Zakthul. The humans hit every system at once. By the time we could gather our forces, our homeworlds will be uninhabitable. How long would it take to evacuate our populations? Asked the Queen. Months, Your Majesty. We have billions of citizens on our core worlds. Our transport ships cannot move them all in 72 hours. The Queen's compound eyes reflected the light from the tactical displays around her. Each screen showed human ships in orbit around another Zektar world, waiting patiently for their deadline to expire. Send a message to the human admiral, she said finally. Ask for more time. The reply came back within an hour. Admiral Jin Suho's face appeared on their communication screen, his expression as hard as stone. Your Majesty, he said, using her title but with no respect in his voice. You had 45,000 human civilians to evacuate from Kepler 442c. How much time did you give them? Admiral, please be reasonable. We cannot move billions of people in 3 days. Then you should have thought of that before you attacked our colony. Jin Suho leaned forward in his chair. You have one opportunity to save some of your people. Surrender your entire military fleet. Give up all your weapons. Accept permanent human oversight of your remaining worlds. In exchange, we will help. You evacuate your population to the reservation planets we have prepared. The terms were harsh beyond belief. The Zektar would go from being a galactic power to being a protected species under human control. But the alternative was the complete destruction of their civilization. On the Council world, the alien leaders were finally understanding what they had done. They had not just picked a fight with humans, they had triggered a response that had been planned for centuries. Ambassador Kang Wu was back in the Great Hall, but this time the atmosphere was very different. The same aliens who had threatened him weeks ago were now begging him to call off the human fleets. Ambassador, pleaded Velthara, surely your people do not intend to commit genocide against an entire species. Kang Wu's face was as calm as always, but his words were like ice. The Terran Federation has no intention of harming any Zektar civilians. We are offering them safe relocation to worlds where they can live peacefully under our protection. But you are destroying their entire civilization. Their civilization chose to attack our children, Captain Lee Gina said from behind the ambassador. What did you think would happen? The truth was spreading through the galaxy now. Other species were pulling back their fleets from human space. Trade agreements were being renegotiated. Diplomatic messages were being sent to Terra promising friendship and cooperation. Everyone was remembering the old rule. Do not challenge the humans. In the Zektar home system, the deadline was approaching. Most of the population was still on the planet, unable to escape in time. The Hive Queen had accepted the human terms, but surrender was a slow process when dealing with billions of lives. Admiral Jin Suho watched the evacuation ship struggling to carry away as many Zektar civilians as possible. He felt no joy in this victory. War was always ugly even when it was necessary. Admiral, reported his communication officer, we have confirmation from all systems. The Zektar military has surrendered their fleets. Their government has accepted our terms. Very good. Cancel the atmospheric ignition on all worlds. Begin humanitarian assistance for the evacuation. The Zektar would survive, but they would never again be a threat to anyone. Their military was gone, their government was under human control, and their people would live on reservation worlds for the rest of their existence. It was not genocide, but it was the complete end of their power. They had learned too late why the oldest rule in the galaxy existed. 6 months after the Kepler incident, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Council met again in the same Great Hall, but now many seats were empty. The Zektar delegation was gone forever. Other species had withdrawn from the Council, rather than risk angering the humans. Ambassador Kang Wu stood in the center of the hall again, but this time no one was shouting at him. The alien delegates sat quietly in their chairs, afraid to speak too loudly or move too quickly. They had all heard what happened to species that threatened human colonies. Velthara was still there, but her crystal body was dim and gray. Theo, proud leader who had once demanded that humans bow to alien authority, now could barely look the human ambassador in the eyes. The Terran Federation wishes to address the concerns that were raised at our last meeting, Kang Wu said calmly. We have reviewed our expansion policies and made some changes. The aliens leaned forward, hoping to hear that humans would slow down their growth or ask permission before settling new worlds. Instead, they heard something that made their hearts sink. Effective immediately, all human colonies will be protected by permanent defense fleets. Any species that threatens human civilians will face immediate and total military response. We will no longer wait for attacks to happen before defending our people. The spider-like alien Tekmoth raised one metal leg nervously. Ambassador, surely you do not intend to militarize the entire galaxy. We intend to protect our families, Captain Lee Gina replied from her position behind the ambassador. If that requires military force, then we will use military force. Velthara, finally found the courage to speak. What assurances can you give the Council that humanity will not use these new fleets against peaceful species? Kang Wu looked around the hall at all the frightened alien faces. The same assurance we have always given. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. But if anyone threatens human civilians again? He gestured to the empty seats where the Zektar used to sit. You have seen what happens. In his archive chamber, Mordeth was updating the historical records. The file on the Zektar Collective was now marked as extinct as independent civilization, challenged humans, duration of war. 97 standard days. The old robot had tried to warn them, but they had not listened. Now he was recording the lesson for future generations. Do not challenge the humans. They do not fight for territory or resources. They fight for survival. And when humans fight for survival, they reshape the galaxy itself to ensure victory. On Terra Nova, one of the oldest human colonies, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Engineer Nam Ju-wan was having coffee with his daughter Nam Soo-jin, who had just graduated from the university with a degree in alien relations. Dad, the news feeds are calling us monsters, she said sadly. They say humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Nam Ju-wan stirred his coffee slowly, thinking about what to say. Through the cafe window he could see children playing in the park while their parents watched and smiled. It was a peaceful scene, but he knew that peace existed because humans were willing to fight for it. Maybe we are dangerous, Soo-jin, he said finally, but we are only dangerous to those who try to hurt us. The Zektar could have left us alone. Instead, they chose to attack 45,000 innocent people. But turning entire worlds into weapons is exactly what any parent would do to protect their children if they had the ability. He looked at his daughter with serious eyes. The galaxy fears us now, but that fear will keep our people safe. Sometimes being feared is better than being loved. Soo-jin was quiet for a while, thinking about his words. Will it always be like this? Will humans always have to be the scary ones? I hope not, her father replied. But until other species learn to respect human life, we will do whatever we must to protect it. Across the galaxy, other species were having similar conversations. On the peaceful world of Sylvan Prime, Keeper Yanthul was recording her thoughts for the historical archives. I have studied the humans for 300 years, she said to her recording device. They are not evil creatures who enjoy causing pain. They are not more violent than most species. But they have something that makes them unique in the galaxy. They absolutely refuse to accept defeat when defending their families. Other species fight until the cost becomes too high. Then they negotiate or surrender. Humans fight until they win or until they are all dead. There is no middle ground with them. The Zektar learned this too late. They thought they were fighting a territorial war, but humans saw it as a fight for survival. When humans believe their survival is threatened, they will sacrifice everything. Their comfort, their morality, even their humanity itself, to ensure their people continue to exist. Her recording was sent to archives throughout the galaxy, where it became required study for all military academies and diplomatic schools. Meanwhile, Dr. Song Hyewan was working in her new laboratory on Earth. After the Kepler incident, she had been promoted to head of xenobiological defense. Her job was to study alien species and find ways to defend against them if they ever attacked humans again. Prometheus protocol proved 97% effective against Zektar physiology, she wrote in her report to Terran Command. Recommend continued research into atmospheric weaponization for other known species. We must be prepared for future challenges. It was cold work, designing weapons that could kill entire civilizations. But Dr. Song remembered the fear in the human children's eyes as Zektar ships rained fire from the sky. She would do whatever was necessary to make sure that never happened again. Admiral Jin Suho was also writing reports, but his were about military strategy. The demonstration was successful, he noted. Intelligence reports show that 47 species have withdrawn territorial claims from human space. Estimated time before the next challenge to human expansion, minimum 500 years. But perhaps the most important conversation was happening in a small house on Kepler 442c, where He-Jin was talking to her young son Min-Jai. He had been only 6 years old during the attack, but he remembered the fear and the burning sky. "Mom, why did the bug aliens want to hurt us?" he asked. He-Jin thought carefully about how to answer. "They were afraid of us, sweetheart. Sometimes when people are afraid, they do foolish things. But we were not trying to hurt them. No, we were not. But they thought we were taking something that belonged to them." "Will they come back?" He-Jin looked out at the rebuilt city, where new buildings stood where Zektar fire had once fallen. In the sky above, human patrol ships kept watch for any threats. "No, Min-Jai. They will never come back. And if anyone else tries to hurt us, they will learn the same lesson." On distant Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was passing new laws. The Human Protection Act made it illegal for any species to threaten human colonies. The non-interference doctrine gave humans the right to expand into any uninhabited system without asking permission. Nobody voted against these laws. Nobody dared. In the deepest vaults of the Terran Defense Archives, locked away under the highest security, the Prometheus files continued to grow. New weapons were being designed, new strategies developed, new contingencies planned for threats that might not appear for centuries. Because humanity had learned the most important lesson of survival. The universe was vast and dangerous, and, somewhere out there, another species might be foolish enough to challenge them. When that day came, humanity would be ready. Ambassador Kang Wu retired from diplomatic service and wrote his memoirs. The book became the most widely read text in galactic history. Its final chapter was titled, "We Never Wanted to Be the Monsters." In it, he wrote, "We came to the stars seeking new homes for our children. We found a galaxy that respected only strength and feared only extinction. So we became what the galaxy required us to become. We became the species that others whisper about in the dark. We became the nightmare that keeps aggressive civilizations awake at night. We never wanted this responsibility. But someone has to be the galaxy's immune system, the force that stops evil from spreading. If that burden falls to us, then we will carry it. If being monsters is what it takes to keep our children safe, then we will be monsters. But we will never forget that we chose to be monsters so that our children could choose to be human." The book's last words became humanity's unofficial motto. We are what the galaxy made us, and the galaxy made us very, very good at protecting what we love. The oldest rule in the galaxy remained unchanged. Do not challenge the humans, and everyone remembered why.